So I just wanted to show you this little bit because it gives away quite a lot of how the process works. So I'm just measuring out the rubber as usual. So it's 10% into the pot. And this time we're making up a thixotropic. So with this particular type of rubber, we just add a thixotropic additive like that. It's a very small amount because this new additive that they've got is incredibly powerful. Yeah. So now I'm mixing it together, same mix, but with the thixotropic in, it will stop being liquid and become a thick paste, like so. So making sure you get all the catalyst into your mix. I'm using a paper cup this time because it gives me very little tidying up and cleaning up afterwards. So we're vacuuming it again. Not strictly necessary, to be quite honest. It's just me being anally retentive. So what I've done is I've cut out little pieces of Plastishim into where I want the seams to be, so that they're a nice fit. And then I use the rubber to hold it in place. And I'm doing this before I do anything else really. So when you're doing this kind of work, you want to get the windows, this is what I call a window, an enclosed space, done first, because it's very difficult to get to these. If you've got a wall outside of this, it stops you getting your hands in there. And I'm pushing the rubber in so that I push out the air as I go. I'm going to leave that to go off on all the aspects, on all these little walls I put. I'm just going to show you what walls I put up and explain why. That's a nice fit now. That's there. I put a window in here. So the idea now will be that I might split it down here and bring it down this area. Then I want a window between each of the legs here and in here. And I'm putting a split into the mould here so that when I take it apart, I can get the leg out of the mould nice and easily. I've chosen this method over cutting the legs off because ultimately it'll save me a lot of time and effort and seam work. And if I keep the seam on this side of the legs, this will come out nice and easily. So I don't want this to be deep. I want the window to come out virtually flush with the leg here, just enough to give me a good seam line. The more the seams are at right angles to your sculpture, the better. So you want a seam to come out at right angles, not at an angle like that to everything that you're doing. And that way you get really good seams. And I've kept my keys, so my Plastishim key is there in the center, so that when this goes together in the mold, it's going to be forced into the right position. This area with a thin coat again, which will get right into all these little tiny crevices. But what I've done now is I've sealed that entire area, and I've cut this out as well, which will fit on here like that. Now the reason we're doing this, and this will be the wall as it stands, we won't be doing any more to this. This goes on like this because I won't be able to get the foot out of the mould, so I want to make a split in the mould. And rather than making a split in the mould later, I'm going to make that split now in a controlled way, and that way I can use quadraxial fiberglass matting to protect the split, so that as I'm working I can pull the split in the mould open without fear of the whole lot splitting completely. You'll see more clearly a bit later on what I'm talking about. Look at that, that is going off so quickly. When it starts to go off, you just stay calm and carry on. So that should give me a nice foundation to stick this into position, like so. And now I'm just going to push the rubber into the Plastishim like this. What we don't want is air bubbles, of course. I can hear the bubbles cracking as I'm doing it. And as you can see, it gives me a very accurately placed seam by doing it this way. So I'm going to push this in underneath here and create a little wedge of rubber underneath the foot, pushing all the air out as I go again. And that will make this mould so much easier later on. The delicate little things like her toe, which is here, I know will come out perfectly in the mould now, because at this stage I've got total control. Just checking to see where else I've got problems. I've definitely got a problem in here actually, so I'm going to use this bit of rubber just to get right into that corner in there. That's where an air bubble will form. You can use silicone sealant on this to instead of using thixotropic rubber, but I found just recently that something is affecting the silicone. So if we put silicone sealant on the leg here, for example, this rubber will expand and pull away from the mould. That's been happening to me quite a lot. I've gone back to my old method of doing it with a thixotropic paste like this, that I make up and can control the viscosity of it that way. So if you've got windows like this, here, 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 and here, always do them first, and then do your main seam afterwards. So this is just a preparatory stage in the process so that I can get to things easily and make it accurate. This is a tool, remember, that you're making in order to be able to create the finished sculpture cast from it. And that's the best way to view it rather than as a mould, because it's got to be ergonomic. It's got to be a really good functional tool. So when I'm making 15 of these, I don't dread it. I don't find it really difficult. In fact, the opposite's true. I find it really easy to get the casts out.